Welcome to Cashflow Savannah. It's just me today. Chandler is not here. I'm titling this the Ugly Grandpa episode. Who is Ugly Grandpa? It's me. I happened to record this podcast interview with Living Off Rentals with Kirby back in January. I was a little salty. I was very tired. My team and I were right in the middle of a giant project. We closed a deal in 9 days for a client, and then we took a regular short-term rental in the historic district that happens to be 5 units, and we flipped it into luxury in 3 weeks. It was a giant project. I had to leave my team scrambling to come home and record this episode. So I was a little tired. I was a little salty. And I was also a little worked up about some things that I had been hearing from clients. So please forgive me if I sound angry and spiteful and all of the things. But you know what? I stand behind what I said in this episode. I am against these coaches that charge through the nose and who make most of their income off of coaching. You know what? I make $0 from coaching. I make it all from real estate. And I just want to encourage you, not that you have to be like me, but when you're seeking advice, don't look at the guy who's showing you his best day ever on social media. That's cool. We're happy for that guy. And I've had them too, but I don't think I've ever posted about them. I'm usually showing you my worst day ever. I'm showing you squatters. I'm showing you rehabs, feces running down the sheetrock. I'm in real estate. It's tough and I'm trying to have a good time with it. And in no way am I here to sell you anything. So just keep that in mind when you're speaking to professionals and looking for help, in this industry. I never used coaching and I have a lot of doors in my portfolio. I've been investing for over 21 years. I'm very proud to say that I have been in this industry through many ups and downs in the market, and I have not yet paid for a real estate investing coach. Okay. Just please keep that in mind. I did put my foot in my mouth a little bit because I didn't realize when I recorded this that Kirby does coaching. He assures me it's not his primary source of income, which makes me feel a lot better. He does legitimately have real estate and make money off of that, but I felt bad. I shouldn't have come across so strongly on his own podcast, but I still stand behind everything I said. So anyway, please enjoy the Ugly Grandpa episode of Cashflow Savannah. See you next time. When I first started, again, we were in commercial and then pivoted to residential once we really said, this is great. But I had a property manager and the property manager frustrated me. Okay. But I needed that time to be doing everything I was doing. Instead of dealing with tenants, I was purchasing and rehabbing properties. Okay. So I only had so much time. And I hear all the time, oh, I can just self-manage. I heard it on a podcast. People on podcasts, and here I am, one of them right now, but I'm always here to tell you the truth and be honest because I'm living it every day. I'm not a fake person on a podcast making money off of coaching. I don't make a dime off of coaching. I make my money in real estate. Okay, that's the truth. So that's really going to be your first question. But when I had a property manager, I got a little bit frustrated, but I only had long-term rentals. I was already managing the commercial. That was no problem. So once I started into short-term rentals, already having long-term rentals that were managed, I finally said, oh, I'm pretty comfortable talking with these guests. And so at the same time, when my son hit, I think he was 11, he actually found a baby squirrel and it was injured and it was very small. And he's like, Mom, what do I do? Well, of course, I'm not this evil person that I kind of wanted to toss it out the window, right? And never see it again. I was like, no, I can't. Like, I'm already have 2 young kids. I had a full-time job. Plus I'm doing real estate, right? I'm tapped out. And so, of course, I'm at the baseball field. Who wants this baby squirrel? Well, of course, it's 6 o'clock on a Friday. A couple of people said, oh, there's this place or that place that'll take it, but it's 6 o'clock on a Friday. And if any of y'all know the South, we shut down about 3 o'clock on Friday. No work is going to happen unless you're me after 3 on a Friday. I knew I was hosed until either Saturday morning or Monday. I knew it. I was like, oh man. So of course I did what I taught my children when they were rehabbing my houses. If you don't know how to do it, get online and figure it out. So we did. We got online. We figured out how to take care of the baby squirrel. Some of it was good information and some of it was bad. But of course, we loved this little baby squirrel. Well, we thought it was a boy because we didn't know anything. So there were things that we thought were things that ended up not being, if that makes sense. I don't mean to sound like an idiot, but we didn't know what we were doing.
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah. I wouldn't either.
Yeah, we thought it was a little boy, and my son named the squirrel Sid. Well, turns out it's a girl. We figured out later it was a girl. So we had this squirrel named Sid, and man, we just loved her. She was awesome. And when my son was in school, I'm the one caring for the squirrel all day. And my son, Joshy, was fantastic. He would get up every 4 hours at night and feed her. Like, he was very dedicated to the squirrel, and we all just fell in love with her. Well, so I'm always carrying Sid with me. I'm at real estate closings. I'm in houses.
That's
I'm in the mall,
hilarious.
you name it. I was there and I just had a giant purse and there was a baby squirrel in it. And the people that needed to know knew, and the people that didn't. So she was great. So of course you end up posting on Facebook and whatever about this. So, it just kind of got to be where everyone kind of knew my son was raising baby squirrels, and he was great at it. He's a great kid. And so, of course, squirrels started flying out at us after Sid came around. So as I'm carrying around baby squirrels, which I have done for years, I still do. I had one last week. Everywhere I would go, I would see a squirrel and I'd be like, oh, there's Sid or Sid's relative. Everything became Sid. And so I started saying, well, Sid was here, look at that here. Sid was here too. Like, squirrels are everywhere. So once I really decided that I just enjoyed property management, I started to really enjoy the guest interactions. And I had a property manager for my short-term rentals as well. So we have two different property managers, two different asset classes. And I said, this is ridiculous. I can do this myself. And so I had zero, and I mean zero intention for managing for anyone else. And I do a lot of things to entertain myself. And one was, I started naming LLCs because I had been buying real estate. Well, now that we had the squirrels, we started naming our LLCs after squirrels. And when it came time to name my management company, I named it Sid Was Here, just for my own entertainment. I like the name. Fast forward today, and I'm a fairly good sized property manager in Savannah, managing for others. But, in the short-term rental world, in my opinion, Kyle, and you can tell me your thoughts, maybe I'm crazy. I think you do better in this business by standing out and being unique. The last thing you want to be is boring. And I found very quickly that even though I'm not smart enough to know that that was a great name that people would remember years later, and they do, it's very memorable and it has a great story. And I was always pet friendly with my real estate, with my short-term rentals, everything. I always try to be very pet friendly because I want to always put that guest or that tenant first. And I say, I want to have a home that's amazing, that they want to come to, and that they stay and they're very comfortable. And part of that is bringing your pet. And I don't really care if it's your Shetland pony. I'll take your llama. If you're paying my pet fee and, it's getting cleaned and put back in order, there's no damage, I really don't care. So I found that tying in Sid, went beautifully with what I was already doing, which was providing great customer service. We house squirrels, we house humans, and everything in between. And people really remembered that. And it really came to my advantage, later on, but it really wasn't. I wish I could say, oh, I was so calculated and smart. I wasn't. I just was having a good time. And to be honest, I wanted to honor my son. I have two sons who are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but my little one had just put his heart and soul into the squirrel rescue and just did so many things with it. And I'm really proud of that. Every time I use that company name, I know that it's a little honor to him and what he has done in life. And it's just been really a great way to just celebrate our very unique family.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think I saw a statistic recently that I think it was like 75% of people who were polled that use short-term rentals say that they want to have they do it because they want more of the personalized
Yeah,
experience. They want to like feel a part of that community, a part like hear about the hosts, like that's they don't want blah. They don't want the same of what they've seen. Every hotel room looks pretty much the same. They want something unique. So I think something like that really, like you said, it leaves its mark, and it that's why people enjoy using short-term rentals, and it stands out, which you definitely don't want to just blend in and be the same in short-term rentals. So
right.
that is so cool. So on the short-term rental topic, then you have a very diverse portfolio. Why did you pivot to short-term rentals? Can you share a little bit about like what your strategy is and why you've gone this way instead of going with more of the self-storage and commercial properties?
That's a very good question. I'm going to start my answer with talking about the market. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm talking any market. And I love talking assets and liabilities. I love it. And I will talk about that all day. But in any asset class, and especially real estate, you're going to make your money going in, and you've got to see around the corner. Okay. So if you can get ahead of the curve and get there before everyone else realizes it's coming,
Mm,
that's where the money's made, right? If you'd have bought crypto 10 years ago,
yeah.
we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? You'd be on an island somewhere. And that's a great example. But like, you understand, I started buying real estate in 04, 05, 06. I had a lot of real estate when the market crashed. So I'm now in my, I don't know what cycle, second or third down cycle, because things are a little bit down right now, especially for short-term rentals. But I'm at heart an entrepreneur, and what an entrepreneur does is see opportunity and go after it. And I am that person times 100. So we had commercial, we had long-term rental, and as I said previously, it's not easy to come up with that 20% down. There were no podcasts when I started investing in real estate. I didn't even read a book. I think I read a book after I had two long-term rentals, and I had a bunch of commercial, but that's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Once I discovered podcasts, I said, oh gosh, this is fantastic. I mean, I didn't even know to go to YouTube at that point. So I had to educate myself by losing money. And you learn real quick when you're losing money, I assure you. So I I kept running out of cash, honestly, to come up with that 20% down payment. We would work and work. And I mean, I was just doing all kind of side hustles I could. But long-term rentals, it's a very long play to come up with that much cash when you're doing it the way I was, which is 20% down, finance the other 80%. And so I heard about short-term rentals back in 2017, and they were not what they are today. I just want to
Yeah.
be very clear. And I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I was smart enough to recognize an opportunity. Well, back to my first deal, I'm living in a multifamily, and the second unit is a pool house. So I heard about short-term rentals. I'm short on cash. And I said, huh, I have a fully furnished pool house that I yet let my friends use, I mean, maybe 5 or 10 times a year, but it wasn't really being utilized. Well, we lived in that because we wanted to. We wanted our space. We didn't want people right on top of us. So, of course, I knew my husband was going to be very opposed. But I also knew that he was on the same team as me. We were trying to gain real estate so that we could someday retire. And so I had him listen to the podcast that I heard. It was Yana McIntyre back in 2017. And she talked about short-term rentals. I said, babe,
She's
please
been on the
listen
show.
to this. She's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm the
she's
biggest
great.
fan of Deanna. She is now a friend. I am so honored to say. The first time she called me, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like Brad Pitt. But anyway, so I heard about it. I said, had my husband listen to it. I said, please just give me a shot at this. And he was just like, people in our pool house. You understand this was not done in 2017.
Right.
So we changed the front door. I put on a keyless entry lock, and that was about it because the thing was already furnished. And I said, I'm not putting a bunch of money. I didn't have extra money at the time. I was putting everything I could into buying long-term rentals. I put my pool house up. Bam, it starts getting booked. And I'm like, really? Because we don't live in like the historic district of Savannah. We're in the outskirts. Like, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but it's not, you're not going to walk across the street and see a historic building. You're just not. I couldn't believe it. And I said, we got to do more of this. So luckily, I already had my home expenses covered. So everything that was coming out of my pool house was just gravy. And I say this to everyone, there's an asset in your life that you could cash flow off of. It could be an extra car. You might be able to put your cat on Instagram and make money. I mean, I don't know, but because of the shared economy, there's so much opportunity to make money as a side hustle. You just kind of have to figure it out. And that's what came to me, was that I already had an asset in my possession. You probably do too. I turned it into cash flow. And boy, did I see the money. Within a few months, I had enough money to buy my second. So I took a single family home. The second one was one that I already owned. And I said, well, heck, with this long-term rental stuff, I'm going to furnish this sucker. So then we rehabbed it a little bit nicer than we normally did. We put in like granite countertops where we normally would have put in laminate, just stuff like that. But I always say 1 buys 2, 2 buys 3, 3 buys 4. So I started seeing that come to fruition. And I was fairly familiar with the laws in Savannah, and because I'm in real estate now, and I started seeing all this opportunity in neighborhoods on the outskirts, and I knew it wasn't legal to short-term rent. Again, this is 2017, 2018, long before COVID, long before anything. And I kept getting people asked to stay in my pool house and my other one for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I was like, no, I really don't want you in my backyard that long. No offense, but I'm going to say something offensive. I don't want you. No. I said, there's an opportunity. So I saw medium-term rentals coming years and years ago, which is why I ended up getting to write 2 of the chapters for the book, The 30-Day Stay. I wrote about Savannah in that book. So I purposely bought homes that could not be short-term rentals, and I put them in as medium-term rentals. So before COVID hit, 3 years before COVID hit, I had 10 to 15 medium-term rentals in Savannah. Nobody was doing them at that time. And so
Mhm.
I was out hustling with business cards, going to real estate offices, different hospitals. I was going to different communities and saying, hey, I have these houses. They're fully furnished, all utilities, you know, internet, blah, blah, blah. No one else had them. And so I had a waiting list 3 pages long for years on my medium term rentals. In fact, when the movies found out about me, I had movie companies calling. And that's when I really started just going crazy with management, because I was kind of the go-to chick in Savannah for years
Mm.
with these rentals. And so again, it was just me having enough of a finger on the market to go, wow, short-term rentals, okay. And then I was like, wow, medium-term rentals, okay. And I would pivot. And next, my first medium-term rental, I took a house that the owner was renting for $650 a month. Years ago, everything in Savannah rented for $650 a month. That is the
Wow.
God's honest truth. And I said, I think I can get 1,600 for this as a furnished rental. And I did. And that house now makes over 2,000 a month as a medium term rental. It's still in service. I bought it for $51,000 in 2018, and it's now worth over 200,000. And it has been cash flowing for me since then. Okay. So now medium term rentals are a fad. I've already been in it 3 years. If you can find where the market's going next and be an early adapter, you're going to make really good money. We're on the backside of the curve. It's a little harder now, as many people know. But I'm just always saying, keep your ear open, keep your pulse on the market, and see what's coming around the corner and try to get there before the next guy.